Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. You're here with the global Canadian, Ruby Chouhan, your international Canadian Connect. Today we have a very, very exciting interview with my client and dear friend, Victoria, who has relocated from Canada to the UK to Dubai. She's a global businesswoman, entrepreneur, real estate investor, and more. Victoria, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Great, thank you so much. So, let's start this off with an icebreaker. I know you've traveled the world, you've gone all over. What is the best thing about living in Dubai for you?
You mean aside from the weather and the
Yes, aside
tax
from
rate?
the weather. Oh my God, yes. The taxes, not paying 40, 50% to CRA, Canada Revenue Agency. Please tell me all the wonderful things.
Look, there's a lot of benefits to living in Dubai. And I think one of the main draws that brought us here, both my husband and I, was just the sense of adventure, trying something new, trying something a little bit different. And seeing what comes out of it. That's really all that is. And after living in London for 8 years, we knew that we wanted something new. And
Yeah.
Dubai's been kind of the perfect place to find all of that.
And that's how we're going to start off today with a little tidbit about the exciting reasons to move to Dubai. I want to learn more about your journey from Canada. Did you grow up in Canada? What really motivated you to move? Where did you go first? And what was your route to Dubai?
So I did grow up in Toronto, born and raised. I actually grew up in Etobicoke
Amazing.
for most of my life.
I'm a Toronto person as well, born and raised.
And I moved to London in 2014. That was kind of my first experience moving abroad. And I'll be honest, living abroad was something that I really never thought about growing up. I didn't really think that it was something that I wanted to do. But, the opportunity came up to do it. And it was a mix of personal, it was a mix of wanting to try something different and a bit of love. I met my now husband and he was living in London, and I took it as a sign to just kind of go for something a little crazy.
Yeah. Your love brought you to the global expat journey.
It did take me out of Canada, that for sure. Now, I didn't at the time think that this was going to be such a permanent decision. So, I left a lot of kind of things at home, right? I had my family, I had my things, I had a property there. I was always kind of thinking, oh, maybe one day I'll go back and, I'm going to want to have these things. I'm going to want to try and assimilate back to Canadian life at some point. But
because Canada's always home at heart, even though you're far away, I'm sure you still feel that connection with Canada, your family's there and all that as well.
Yeah, that never goes away, right? No matter where life takes you. But I think having been away from Canada for so long, it's been over 10 years now.
It's
10
insane
years
how
and
time
counting.
flies.
I can safely say that I don't plan to move back anytime soon. So yeah, I think the ups and downs and kind of the journey throughout those 10 years of living abroad has really shaped kind of my decisions and how I approach, investing and my life and my assets in Canada, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And you made a really interesting statement that resonated with me when you said, growing up, you never thought about moving abroad and becoming an expat. So personally, I've been working with non-residents and expats for close to a decade. But growing up and people that I come across, it doesn't cross their mind that there is opportunities across the world. I think, yes, Canada's home, but we should take risks. We should explore. Whether you want to move to South America, Mexico, have a slower beach life, or if you're looking to move to Dubai, Hong Kong, etc. for that business buzz, or even Spain for retirement, it's all possible. And just if you consider moving, it doesn't have to be permanent forever. It could be short term, but that adventure, the excitement to try something new, new employment, new friends, new community is definitely possible. And I think people should really consider it because people say, you always typically stay, I think it's 10 miles or 20 miles from where you're born most of your life. So I'm really excited and to hear about your journey and that you took that chance.
Yeah, I will say it is quite the adjustment, right? And I will say that I was in the fortunate position of being pretty well prepared and privileged to be able to move abroad. Like, look, it's not a simple feat. It's expensive, and there are lots of kind of unforeseen circumstances that you can never really truly research and prepare for ahead of time, right? Like, I had the
Absolutely.
luxury of having a partner in a country where that he had called home for a really, really long time. So it was almost like I kind of got up and left, and I kind of entered a world that was already pretty well established. And I recognize that not a lot of people have that luxury, and not everybody can do that.
Absolutely.
What I will say for anybody that is thinking about moving abroad, it's not about research. You know, you can do all kinds of research ahead of time. I think experience is the best teacher. What I would say is prepare yourself,
Yeah.
right? I mean, financially speaking, having an emergency fund on hand in addition to those moving expenses was key, right? Because things happen, right? Unexpected expenses, maybe health issues. You might get robbed, you might get scammed.
Yeah, yes,
Right?
that happens everywhere. You have to be on your P's and Q's and do your research, talk to multiple people at a time. And as you said, with some of the challenges, let's say when you first moved to UK versus Dubai, or in general when you're considering moving abroad, it is like a big puzzle. There's different pieces, and you touched on healthcare. What are some key areas you think people need to consider, like banking or foreign exchange, etc.?
I mean, yeah, those are all things that you kind of commit yourself to, right? When you choose to live in another country, right? You commit to the governance structure, the social, the policies, everything about it. And like I said, you never really truly kind of grasp the magnitude of all the things that are different about moving abroad versus home until you get there.
Yeah.
Like, I remember thinking how easy it was to set up a bank account in the UK. And I swear they were so much more advanced than any bank in Canada. So that was a really
Oh,
nice.
that's a positive. That's
I
good to
could,
hear.
you know, the simple idea of being able to send money home was so easy. Whereas I still have a Bank of Montreal account back home.
Yep.
And they won't even register my international phone number.
Oh, wow.
Because they just can't, they're not capable of doing that. So what does that mean? I can't receive like an OTP
Oh,
to
yes.
sign in.
Yeah.
I'm extremely limited. And yet they house all my money back home.
Side note, interesting you said that. You know, Canadian banks and CRA and other places, they send authorization numbers to phone codes. Luckily, with the Canada Revenue Agency, when someone does become a non-resident, they added a new feature where you don't need a Canadian number anymore, and they have something called a grid system. But going back to banks, that's extremely difficult because when someone moves abroad, that doesn't technically mean that you're going to close your bank account, because maybe you're moving abroad for 2 years, 5 years. Maybe you have Canadian real estate that you need to keep paying bills for through your Canadian account. And if you're having that much difficulty managing those things and moving payments, I'm sure that becomes very arduous.
And yeah, I mean, when you're entering kind of a new phase of life, you're so wrapped up in enjoying, right, everything that a new city, that a new country, new social community has to offer, that doing stuff like banking back home is such a time suck, and something that's like, okay, well, this isn't fun. I don't want to do this. And that's when I realized it's like, I really need to delegate this stuff to people and professionals that I trust,
Yep.
you know, who know their stuff, knowledgeable, can navigate this way better than I ever could, right? Sadly, I didn't really get to that point for 8 years after living.
We're here to help
abroad.
you now.
Yeah,
Yes. And tell me, so UK to Dubai, tell me some of the wonderful things about moving abroad and becoming an expat, and things that are now maybe part of your life that weren't so much a part of your life back in Canada.
I mean, It's a completely different experience, right? Just culturally, but also I think for me, my professional career is something that really blossomed when I arrived in London.
Amazing.
There's a lot of things. You just have a different network. People kind of think a certain way. Work life is different, and you kind of put yourself in this really interesting position where you're just trying to like take it all in, and you're trying to kind of learn as much as possible. I did my master's in London, and that's when I kind of my corporate career in consulting. These are all things that I never kind of thought my future had I in Canada, had I in Toronto.
Is because unfortunately, when cities, Hong Kong, Dubai, etc., because of business, and you see energized and that they're interested in within their careers, starting new businesses and networking, and everyone. It's always good to grow your network because you never know how someone can help you and where that might lead. So I'm sure that buzz of Canadian work life versus, I don't mean work, but the activity and the opportunity a lot more here.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think it comes down to like who you meet.
Yeah.
Network is so important. And I think even before moving to Dubai, we knew it was really important to connect with people that we knew were living here or had experience living here, about where to live, who to work for, what the life really was. Like I think making those decisions even well before you arrive somewhere has been key to making friends, even securing the I am in. Things just don't happen. You can kind of have something that facilitates that can
Absolutely.
be really fun.
Yeah. And I personally am part of a number of different groups for Canadians, such as the Council of Dubai and North Emirates. So if you are planning, I highly recommend Facebook groups such as Canadians in Spain, Canadians in Dubai, joining different Canadian business councils. I think over 10,000 members in Dubai. They have community network. They have a lot of women's networking, and not only business, but social girls meet, women's meetups, tennis meetups, etc. So there's an opportunity to grow your community, meet new people, meet other Canadians as well while you transition here. So community is so important. Move somewhere and feel so isolated. Realization is important, and we leave our life home to start a new life, and that means parts, whether it's dating, hobbies.
Actually, that's you and I met, isn't
Yes,
it? Canadians in Dubai Facebook.
it is.
Sent out a mass message talking about you being on a master class in tax.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I mean, I know my tax situation at home is probably a mess. It was in tatters. And I didn't realize just how messy the situation was until I met you and you kind of walked me through.
Yes. I'm very glad for that. And thank you for attending the masterclass. And now Victoria has been a client of ours for over 3 years. I come to Dubai and I travel, and we do Canadian tax masterclasses across the globe for expats, where we talk about residency ties, departure taxes, post-departure tax implications, and more. And people are quite unaware of their tax implications when you plan to move abroad or live abroad, because you can't typically go to a regular accounting firm that rarely deals with non-resident divisions, disclosures, departures, etc. So when I host these master classes, 30, 40, 50 Canadians come, I get to teach them, they get to network, we all get to talk about their history, if they had issues, how they dealt with them. And I'm very lucky to not only grow my clientele and my business, but also get to know individuals very closely. We work closely with our clients. Our tagline is even a personal approach, because We want to make sure everything is good with them. And of course, it fosters a relationship as well. Typically, when you file Canadian tax returns when you're living in Canada, you talk to your accountants once a year. But once you become a non-resident, we have multiple touch points throughout the year, and we're close and we get to know each other. So thank you again for being my friend and my client now. Client or friend now,
Thank
whichever way it
you.
is, which has been wonderful. Let's dive in a little bit to taxes, finances, and your move initially. How did you feel about your tax team, finances, when you moved abroad, the advice? Were you able to be strategic with the advice they gave you? Things like that. Tell me about that.
So in short, there was no support system for me when I left. I kind of had to piece it together while abroad. So yeah, I learned from my mistakes. But honestly, it was something that was totally new to me, right?
Yeah.
And moving and the whole relocation thing. My first instinct was to just continue with the accounting team that I had been working with when I left. And, I kind of trusted these professionals to kind of understand my situation and know what to do, right? Because let's be honest, the CRA, the Canadian tax system, it's not exactly straightforward to piece together, to navigate. And, when I'm kind of trying to settle in my new life and trying to piece together elements of, having just moved abroad, right?
Yeah.
You kind of want to be able to trust somebody to make those decisions on your behalf. Unfortunately, my previous tax accounting practice they were not knowledgeable in how to manage a non-resident situation, an expat situation, and somebody who had assets and investments in Canada still, but was not living in Canada anymore. And this continued for a really long time, just because I didn't know any better.
That's not your fault.
Yeah.
Most people, the average people, they're not experts in the tax world. So they look to their accountants to give them expert advice. And you don't know what to ask if you've never been in the situation of moving abroad as well. So it's up to the accountant to advise you thoroughly and comprehensively of all the different areas, whether it's investments, departures, rental income, selling property, disclosure forms, exiting the Canadian tax system, earning pension, etc. So how is one supposed to know exactly all the different questions they're supposed to ask their accountant?
Yeah, and it was something that just kind of ticked along in the back of my mind while I was living my new life abroad.
Yeah.
And you'd get the notices every year. I'd get my email from my accountant once a year to let me know that it's tax time. File the returns. Here's what I need. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
It seems like she's got everything under control.
Yeah.
Let me just send her what she's asking for and carry on.
Yeah.
But I think the big realization point was when I met you and explained to you my situation. And literally within minutes, you were telling me about all of these things that should have happened.
Yep.
And it kind of clicked for me. Oh, I don't think any of that has actually been happening since I've been abroad.
Luckily, we're fixing it all now, and it's almost all dealt with the CRA because they take a while too. And if you're okay with me sharing some of the details of your situation, I'd love to share typical scenarios people deal with often that we come across when someone's moved abroad for a long time.
Yeah, please do.
Perfect. So, Victoria has been out of Canada since 2014, and she was working with her accountant filing regular Canadian tax returns. And most accounting firms, they're not familiar with the various non-resident disclosures, filings, non-resident divisions that come into play as well. And if you're filing regular returns as a Canadian resident, that's totally fine. Continue using your existing accountant. However, when you decide to move, it's very important you speak to an accounting firm such as ours, 360 Global Tax, who specializes in non-resident tax implications, so that step one, you're comprehensively planning your departure, being strategic, etc. for when you move. And then once you move, we help with the filing requirements, non-resident tax withholding requirements, etc. So in Victoria's situation, since 2014, she was filing regular Canadian tax returns. CRA hadn't marked her as a non-resident, as an immigrant of Canada, which is a big concern because when you're a tax resident of Canada, your worldwide income is taxable in Canada. And one of the main reasons people relocate, especially to tax-friendly places like the UAE, Qatar, Bermuda, Bahamas, etc., is not to have to pay tax to Canada. However, until such time you're properly exited out of the Canadian tax system, the CRA expects you to file tax returns, report your worldwide income, etc. So when I met with Victoria, it appeared that she was marked as a resident. She was continuing to receive various credits such as Ontario Trillium Benefit, Climate Incentive, etc., which non-residents are no longer eligible for. And when this situation happens and years down the road, let's say we're finally reporting the departure, that means the CRA is now asking for thousands potentially of dollars back for various credits you were not eligible for. Unfortunately, now that's happening to Victoria.
They're coming to collect.
They're coming to collect a little bit. Luckily, on the benefits repayment, there's no interest, arrears interest. So thankfully, you're just paying back what you received by mistake. But also, when someone exits the Canadian tax system, there's a different sort of tax return we file, which has the exit date, it has different disclosures about property ownership, non-registered investments where there may be a potential departure tax owing. And Victoria mentioned she had real estate in Canada. When someone leaves Canada, they're required to submit a form called T1161, List of Properties by an Emigrant, reporting the fair market value. CRA sees it as a deemed disposition, meaning you sell it and buy back at fair market value. The good thing is there's no tax payable on real estate when you leave Canada, so you don't have to worry about a big departure tax hit on a gain on hundreds of thousands of dollars on your real estate. This form is for disclosure purposes only. Essentially, CRA wants to know who owns property when they leave, how much was it, in case they don't deal with taxes when they sell the property in future. And failing to submit these forms in a timely fashion results in a penalty of $2,500 plus arrears interest, which now, we're catching up a few years later and we're going to ask for forgiveness because it was an honest mistake, and hopefully they will forgive the penalty. It's up to the CRA's discretion, but we're going to try our best because Victoria is honestly catching up on all the filings and correcting all the filings. And on top of that, Victoria had a rental property. So as a non-resident who's receiving non-resident rental income, there's different tax withholding and filing requirements, and failing to withhold non-resident tax could result in hefty penalties of 25% of the gross rent. Rather than penalties, let's say a final assessment. It could result in a final assessment of 25% of the gross rent plus arrears interest. However, when it's an honest mistake and someone has never withheld non-resident tax, etc., CRA often has a position to forgive the penalty and only assess arrears interest. So when Victoria joined our firm, we started withholding tax correctly on rental income. We submitted a form called Form NR6 where CRA allows the taxpayer to pay a lot less tax based on their estimated net rental income upfront compared to the default 25% of the gross rent. When you have rental income, most people don't want to pay 25% of the gross rent to the CRA, which is a huge chunk. Imagine you make $2,000 a month, $500 is stuck with the CRA every month, $6,000 at the end of the year until you file a non-resident rental return, which technically is called an S216 non-resident rental return. There's even a longer name for it actually. But when you file that tax return reporting your actual rental income and rental expenses, you receive a refund back of any overpayment of non-resident tax. The key item is you cannot skip the step of withholding non-resident tax. There can be large penalties. It's important you cross your T's, dot your I's, work with a firm like ours who comprehensively manages the whole process from beginning to end. We want to make sure you don't receive penalties and everything is done correctly, because when you're a non-resident, different types of tax returns, different types of forms, various divisions come into play at the CRA, etc. So from assisting with the departure filings, then the ongoing rental returns over the years and the rental withholdings, we also assisted you with the sale of property as well. Were you aware of the tax implications, requirements, process when it comes to selling your Canadian property, or were you surprised? Tell me about that.
Well, I think just this exemplifies all the reasons why I wanted to work with you, Ruby.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Because honestly, your knowledge, your expertise in this domain area, it's effortless.
Thank
Like
you.
you made this whole kind of blob, this amorphous blob of something that I really wasn't that aware about. And you took it, you made it seem easy.
Thank you.
And you still continue to, right? And I think at the time when I had met you, I had just moved to Dubai. I was very much not in the state of mind of returning to Canada. And I was very much approaching that point of, I want to sell that property and I want to focus on my investments abroad, and kind of making sure that those investments that I do make are protected. That's where you came in, right? And I think at that point in my life, that was really, really important for me. That was a huge priority. So I really just needed to make sure that I kind of tie up loose ends back home, so I could focus on this next phase of my life. And you really did just that.
Thank you. Thank you. And that means so much to me because, yes, tax is tax, work is work, but I really do help people and ease the concerns. Tax is scary. It's my job to clearly explain what's happening. A lot of accounting firms, they're not transparent. They say, give us the work. We're going to do whatever needs to be done, but they don't explain what's happening to the client. I want all my clients to intricately know the processes, the risks, etc., so that you can leave it up to our firm, the experts, to manage it all, especially while you live abroad. We become CRA representatives. We put our mailing address on everything. We express mail everything. We call the CRA on your behalf so you don't have to deal with it from across the globe. And we manage it. And CRA makes a lot of mistakes as well. And I often come across individuals who are extremely stressed during the initial call or when we go over their situation. They're worried that years have gone by. My job is I like to start off my conversation sometimes. Let's take a breath. I'm going to make this very clear and straightforward for you. And our goal is to fix it all so everything is perfect, copacetic with the CRA. And, we review everything year by year, explain the plan, what's going to happen. It's going to take time. Eventually it will be fixed if there's potential risks or penalties. So I understand how critical, important, stressful it's government. It's taxes, it's lots of money, it's selling investments with hundreds of thousands of dollars of capital gain and all these things. So I'm really thankful for the kind words. It means a lot because over the years, I've helped a lot of people and I really feel like there's little bits of me all over the world and makes me feel great, honestly. Thank you so much. Thank you.
No worries. I can't recommend you highly enough.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. So let's talk about selling your property. Were you aware about the process or the withholdings or anything like that?
Definitely not. No. And I didn't even really know where to start.
Yeah.
And I didn't want any surprises along the way either. So obviously the only clear thing that I knew I had to do was just find somebody who could navigate all of that for me. And thankfully, I had already worked with you on sorting out my previous tax affairs up until that point. And so when I came to you with the rental property and the idea of selling, I think, from my experience, you really laid it out quite clearly for me in terms of the path forward. What was it, 6 months, done and dusted?
Let's go over the process in detail. Let's talk about the tax process and then afterwards a little bit about selling as well. So as a non-resident, selling, let me backtrack that. That I'm going to want to cut off for a second. Okay. As a non-resident, disposing, I'm not going to use the word selling, disposing, meaning selling, transferring, or gifting property. And when it's a transfer or a gift, CRA sees it as a sale at fair market value. There's something called a certificate of compliance application and non-resident tax return process, which is a lot of words for me to say, but the certificate of compliance application requirement exists so that buyers do not become liable for paying capital gains tax when someone lives outside of the country in case they don't deal with their tax requirements. So the certificate of compliance applications, they have to be filed within 10 days of the final closing. or there's penalties up to $2,500 plus arrears interest. And essentially, we start working with you, your lawyer, your realtor, your team about 30 days in advance of the closing. These applications include various forms for if it was your principal residence exemption in case that gain is exempt for a little bit, if it was rental property, etc. They calculate 25% of the net capital gain. At the same time as they're submitted and filed, at closing, your real estate lawyer is required to hold in trust 25% of the gross sales price. Now, a lot of individuals are surprised with this. They're non-residents. They think that there's not going to be, or they're not aware of the withholdings. Even potentially, maybe the lawyer hasn't advised them yet. So imagine you sell for $1 million, 25%, $250K is going to be in trust with your lawyer. At closing, you'll receive $750K. You need to keep that in mind if you have a mortgage to pay off, if you need those funds to reinvest, etc. Then CRA starts working on the applications. They'll ask for a payment of 25% of the net capital gain. That payment is made from the funds that the lawyer is holding in trust. Once CRA receives payment, they'll issue the certificates and the rest of the money the lawyer's holding can be released back to you. However, two caveats about this. One main concern, and this shouldn't dissuade you from selling a property, is just to be aware so you can plan your finances correctly. One, CRA takes minimum 6 months to issue certificates. So that's a long time. You're not going to have access to the funds. I'm not sure if your lawyer is going to be accruing interest on that amount they're holding for you. You can check with your lawyer. So let's say 6 months passes, then certificates are issued, you receive the funds back. Caveat 2, as per the Income Tax Act for rental property, the lawyer can actually hold in trust 50% of gross proceeds of sale. I would say I rarely see that happen, maybe once in 100 cases. However, I do advise that you should be ready to have that conversation with your lawyer. What we try to do is share across the applications to show that you won't even have to pay 25% of the gross sales price. I've never seen that happen in over 10 years that I've worked in non-resident tax. So let's say part 1, certificates are issued. CRA has a chunk of tax, 25% of the net capital gain. Let's imagine the gain was $400K. CRA asks for a payment of $100K from the funds that the lawyer is holding in trust. Now the following year comes, CRA has $100K on file for you. The following year, we're required to submit non-resident Canadian tax returns, different than rental returns or other sorts of Canadian non-resident returns, because there's different returns for different sorts of income. The following year, selling-related expenses are included, such as realtor commission, legal fees, accounting fees. It'll bring down your gain substantially. Then, what is taxed is half the gain up to $250K, so $125,000, and then 66.6% of any gain over $250,000 is included to be taxed. Side note, the CRA this year increased the capital gains tax inclusion rate from 50% to 66.6%, meaning now you're going to be paying a little bit more tax on the sale, unfortunately. So now let's imagine that those inclusions, 66.6% over 250K gain, etc., are included. Then you're taxed at your graduated tax rates, and you typically receive a big refund back. That's because CRA always collects a lot more tax upfront because they want the non-resident to file a tax return to report their final net income, expenses, and then you get a big chunk back. Just as an example, imagine the gain was $400K, you had $100K expenses, now the gain is $300K, $125,000 is included for that portion up to $250K, then for that $50K amount, only 66.6% of that is included. So ultimately, it's a lot less than, you're being taxed on a lot less than 25% of the net capital gain that was collected at the time of the certificate. So it's a big process, refunds eventually. It lasts almost over a year and a half sometimes. Let's imagine you sell a property in February of 2025. CRA is not done processing the certificates until August, September sometime. Then we have to wait until the year is over to file your tax return the following year, which is going to be due by April 30th. So it's a long process, but we manage it all with the CRA, with you, etc. And yeah, that is the process.
I cannot have imagined trying to piece that together on my own, right? Because what do you do when you want to sell a property? You work with a lawyer, right? A real estate agent, various other consultants and
Yeah.
professionals. I mean, who would have been able to walk me through every step of the way
Yeah.
like this otherwise, right? And I think what was really so beneficial and so convenient was that you were able to do it all, right? You were my tax advisor. You also were my realtor.
I was.
You did the marketing. You did the showings.
Thank you.
Handled everything with my previous tenants. And also the buyer's side of things. Like it really was just effortless. And I don't think I need to go into what the disadvantages would have been had that been managed otherwise, or even been managed solely by myself from abroad.
As many of you may know, I am the founder of 360 Global Tax, helping Canadian expats across the world. But I am also a real estate broker, and I only specialize in helping my Canadian expat clients. You know, there's so many realtors across Ontario, I believe 70,000, 80,000 plus. It can be very difficult to choose who to work with. So it's very important. For me, for example, it's not so much that I'm chasing the real estate business and all that, but when someone needs the assistance, I'm able to assist because I can cover both the intricate tax process, but also the real estate process because I have my team, I have myself to manage it all. And talking about real estate, especially working with a client who is across the globe, you had tenants in your home. You know, I went personally, spoke to the tenants. We have to give notices. We have to make sure everything goes smoothly for the exit and finally key exchange and handover. Marketing, the marketing materials, professional videos, photography. I like to buy ads through Facebook, Instagram, just get it out as much as possible. I'm in groups of thousands and thousands of realtors where I like to share the listing as well. So marketing is important. Finding the right buyer is important too, because there's different situations where, you know, maybe there's one buyer, but it could be a concern with closing or mortgage applications, things like that. So I'm very thankful. Again, thank you for the opportunity to assist with both tax and real estate. And I'm so glad that went smoothly. We had a little hiccup with the tenants as well. I love to chat about that because everything isn't always as smooth as we think. And we need to be aware of potential challenges and how to face those challenges. So, you know, in our situation, and especially yours, because you had a very, very long relationship with your tenants and you gave them your home and everything was good for years and years, almost 10 years. And now we've given them advance notice to move out, dates, been as helpful as possible to them. And last minute, you know, for the transaction, if a closing date is set, let's say June 30th, a lawyer can sue you if they don't get vacant possession and you've promised vacant possession and key handover. And we heard from the lawyers, if we're not getting the keys, get ready, you're going to get a lawsuit. We're like, we don't want that. Of course not.
We came really close,
We
didn't
came
we?
very, very close. It was a bit scary, but I had faith. We always have faith. You know, and of course, we gave more than 2 months advance notice for your tenants that they'll be moving out. This is the plan to sell the property, etc. And as a realtor, you know, my job is to advise all tenants and all landlords of all the risks and the pros and cons. So yeah, we almost got sued in your situation. You know, we worked very closely with the tenants, giving well more than 60 days advance notice of the transition, the risks, and if there might be a reason that they may need to move out. Tenants have rights too, and it's important for tenants to have rights. Nobody should be kicked out of their home if they don't need to. And the only way a tenant is required to move out of the home is if a new buyer is going to be occupying the property as their new home. A tenant should not have to leave just for new homeowners to re-rent it at a higher price or anything like that. In this situation, a new, very nice family was moving in, and it was going to be their first home as well. Last minute, about 3-4 days before the final closing date, we needed the property the day we needed the property, and unfortunately they wanted it another day or two. Do you want to tell us what happened?
Oh, well, I was actually in Saudi Arabia for work.
Yeah.
And I woke up to a very not so friendly email from the tenants directly,
Yep.
demanding more money, basically a payout for them to leave
Five
the home.
digits. 5 digits. Yeah.
What was it? A few days before closing?
Was it 5, maybe 4 or 5 digits, but close to $10,000 of.
And we were supposed to close on that sale literally that week, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2 days later.
Yes, yeah. So obviously that was not very nice.
No, it's not, especially when you gave them home for 10 years, etc.
Yeah. And, I was in the middle of a really busy work period, traveling a lot for work, on a project in Saudi, back and forth. So, when your mind is kind of consumed with one thing and something like this kind of crops up, it really is such a disruption.
Yeah.
So it was really grateful to have, your support.
Thank you.
Somebody that I could rely on to just kind of smooth things over and handle that.
Yeah. And we had a serious discussion with the tenants and everything worked out, thankfully. So, Victoria, I want to say thank you again for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. From my client, now that almost all the tax items are done, we're now friends. And again, if you're considering moving abroad or already live abroad, make sure to reach out to me to discuss your Canadian tax implications in detail. We'll go over your tax residency, departure requirements, post-departure tax implications, whether it comes to investment income, rental income, pension income, etc. And reach out to us at 360 Global Tax. Check us out. Our email is info@360globaltax.ca, www.360globaltax.ca, and we look forward to helping with your global journey.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Ruby.